At least 19 members of Congress stand to personally profit off of the war in Ukraine as a result of their stock holdings in Raytheon and Lockheed Martin. That's according to Business Insider. Raytheon and Lockheed Martin are the manufacturers of the Javelin and Stinger missiles, which Western allies are currently sending to Ukraine. Among those investing in the defense contractors is Republican Representative John Rutherford of Florida, who purchased between $1,001 and $15,000 worth of Raytheon stock on February 24th, which is the day Russia invaded Ukraine. Rutherford sits on the House Appropriations Committee and the Subcommittee for Homeland Security.
Marjorie Taylor Greene bought between $1,000 and $15,000 worth of stock in Lockheed Martin on February 22nd. 2 days before Russia invaded Ukraine. On the 24th, she tweeted, quote, "War is big business to our leaders," to which Representative Ilhan Omar responded, quote, "Add this to the list of why members of Congress should never be allowed to trade stocks." Our rising panel joins us now to weigh in. Shaunna Thomas is Executive Director of Ultraviolet, and Denise Long is a business consultant and contributor at Newsweek. Shaunna, does Marjorie Taylor Greene have no shame? Like at least a lot of these other members of Congress, when they're profiting off of war and misery and plague, at least kind of do it quietly. But she's out there buying Lockheed Martin and then kind of celebrating at the uptick.
No, absolutely no shame. But we already knew that about her. I mean, look, but the problem is broader than her, right? It's corruption in some cases. It's the appearance of corruption in other cases. Either way, it's a huge problem. Right? There's just no way to argue that there isn't a conflict of interest when you have a financial stake in legislation you're writing or voting on. And I think it's kind of insane that it's taken Congresswomen like Ilhan Omar and Pamela to push really, really hard to move Democratic leadership on this, which I just find disturbing in an era when public confidence in our institutions and leaders are so low.
Yeah, Denise, it's concerning, I think, very concerning, that there is sort of you can imagine how there would be an incentive for lawmakers to support war if they're literally lining their pockets with the profits of a war going on. That creates a terrible kind of encouragement or a reason other than actual security concerns to be in favor of conflict and of conflict lasting as long as possible. So what do you make of this?
Well, exactly what you said, and I think what that tweet says is take a look at the sins of thee and not of me, right? So I cannot imagine a space in an organization which would allow for the destruction of its home to be incentivized. And Robbie, that's exactly what this does. My question for this becomes, when we look at the institution of the federal government, what are the principles that we're living by regarding this very obvious conflict of interest? What are the mechanisms from an administrative perspective that are to oversee and prevent as well as punish these types of actions? What we do know is that the federal government's budget for defense is much, much, much larger than its even budget for how it takes care of its own citizens. And this ability to benefit from that quote unquote defense might be one of those reasons. That needs to be addressed. Those are the questions that need to be investigated, and there need to be structures in place to upend this straight away.
Yeah, and because Marjorie Taylor Greene is so much fun on this one, just want to go back to a tweet from hers on the 23rd, the day before that invasion. She posted, "War and rumors of war is incredibly profitable and convenient." That's the day after she bought the Lockheed stock. And so
I guess in her defense, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, maybe this isn't a defense.
I want to hear this.
I don't think she understands that she's doing the thing that she's criticizing.
Oh, clearly not.
She doesn't get it.
Right. I think
so the other leaders.
Right. I'm sure that disconnect intellectually exists. But so Shaunna, since the only thing that seems to be able to move the needle in Washington now is cynical partisanship, could we at least be at a place where Democratic leadership sees this as an opportunity to dunk on Marjorie Taylor Greene? Because owning your enemies is the only thing that moves. So maybe finally they say, okay, fine, we will allow this ban to move forward in the House that has 99% support publicly, because we can then hang it around Marjorie Taylor Greene's neck. Maybe that's the thing that finally gets this moving, because the Democratic leaders have now agreed basically that they're going to do that. They just haven't done it. And so I think it seems like they're hoping that everybody just forgets.
Yeah, I think that's right. It is an opportunity. Look, this has been a topic of conversation, again, led by progressive women in Congress to really push Democratic leadership, who was hesitant at best, right, to move on this. But I think in the context of war, it's just particularly egregious. And, to the extent that they can say, look, we are not going to accept Republicans, Marjorie Taylor Greene, or anybody else like her war profiteering. I think, could open the door for actually getting this done. I do think that, one of the things that Marjorie Taylor Greene has said is, in addition, is that not only is it big business, but it is a function of corruption. I think it is also an opportunity potentially to have a conversation about corporate influence on politics. So these same contractors that she invested in 2 days before Russia invaded Ukraine are some of the largest political donors in the United States. Yeah. And so it's a larger conversation than this, but I do think we've created an opportunity to at least get this done, to solve this problem, that there is no law prohibiting lawmakers from, sitting on congressional committees, writing legislation, or voting on bills that might affect them financially, which again creates these bloated, defense budgets and keeps us in endless war.
Yeah, and I should say that Marjorie Taylor Greene says that an advisor bought the stocks. Wasn't her call specifically, but so take that for what it's worth. But Denise, could this be an opportunity? Why wouldn't not Marjorie Taylor Greene, but other Republicans seize this opportunity to again to own the libs? Say, oh, you're anti-corporations, anti-big business. You say you're populist, but yet your Nancy Pelosi was very against doing the kind of stock bans. Why don't you live your principles and you're profiting and encouraging war, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I think the question becomes, whose hands are dirty in this, and if I point the light at you, it might turn out that you'll get to see the dirt on my hands as well. So that might be the short answer to that. I think what the American people need to do is make it abundantly clear by calling their legislators to let them know where we stand on this across the line. Whether you identify wherever you identify on the political spectrum, call your legislator however they identify on the political spectrum, and let them know how you feel about them profiting off of war, and the effect that has on the American people. It is our children that go into those wars. It is us, who the refugees from those wars have to live with and live in community with every day. So we have to make it clear to our legislators that they are representatives of us, and the way they are representing us right now doesn't agree with our principles.
And Shaunna, I'm curious if you've heard this too. I've heard privately from members of Congress that there's sort of a social contract, if you will, now that the House and the Senate will vote against the kind of cost of living allowance. They've been doing this for years because none of them want to vote and have a vote that says, oh, they voted to raise their own pay, because that's death to an angry populace come re-election time. And the kind of contract is, look, you're going to be able to make that money back in the stock market because you're going to learn a lot through this job that you're going to then be able to trade on. And so if that is a lot of the resistance. They're like, well, wait a minute, this was the deal. Like I'm supposed to get a little of this ice cream on the side here. Have you heard that from from people on Capitol Hill as well?
I have, and it is a logical explanation for why Speaker Pelosi was not supportive of moving the legislation initially. It was clearly a defense of her members, right, of the people she feels like she needs to take care of, and that includes, making sure that they are able, apparently, to feel financially secure. I don't know if there was an actual, deal cut, informally or otherwise. But I definitely think that they've underestimated the extent to which people out in the world are paying attention to this, and how offended they are by the fact that there is no law prohibiting this, and that it is having a huge impact on their lives, and they see it and they know it.
Well, Shaunna, Denise, thank you so much for joining us.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Up next, we have Brianna Joy Gray joining us, and we will debate, is it time to nationalize oil? I say no, but presumably Brianna and I think Ryan say yes. So
Internationalize it.
Stick around for that.
The UN sees it.